Well, I'm dreadfully sorry. It seems as if I've lagged out there temporarily, but I am back. Let's try this again. Hotspot on the call for you. Here are the JAG Racing League opening day here in Silverstone, the first round of the season. Truly, truly excited for this. I do love Silverstone. Most people do. Most motor racing fans, that part's for sure. You think of the greatest circuits in the world. You think of the Nürburgring. You think of Circuit de la Sarthe. You think of Bathurst, at least in my opinion. You think of Monza. You think of Spa, and you think of Silverstone. If you ask me, that is absolutely the case. But here we are. Looks as if Reimer at the moment, 1:25.976. That's a pretty good starting lap, I'd say. 11 minutes to go. Doesn't look as if the rain is going to be falling. So once again, I am quite new here. Hotspot with you. Take a moment to introduce myself, I guess. I'm a 21-year-old broadcasting student here stateside. And I've done over 150 F1 League casts. A bunch of different leagues and skill levels as well. So it's good to be along here for what seems to be a very competitive group of drivers. Although it has to be said, I really do not know many of them. That has to be said. Reimer is the only driver I'm familiar with here on this grid. But either way, it should be a very fun session to look out for here. Only 13 drivers. We've got 10 minutes left to go in the session here. I have certainly commentated races with less drivers, and we've had some great ones as well. Let's see if anybody's coming out in a timed lap here. It looks like Loki is on his way. Perhaps. Has he, it looks like he's going to be coming in here any minute. He's invalidated his previous attempt, so we'll have to believe that he's going to be coming in here rather shortly. Next up behind it, looks like Wee is going to be coming through here as he makes his way down the Hamilton Straight in towards the first section of this track, that being Abbey Farm, and then Village and the Loop rounds out Sector 1. Let's see how he handles it. The way into this corner, he's taken that quite wide, hasn't he? Looks like maybe he was a little bit late on the brakes. Through the loop, making his way then through into Aintree. Let's see, does he have a good exit speed down the Wellington Straight here? Yes, he does. Has to be said, it's a tidy-looking lap so far. Maybe, again, a bit deep into the braking zone at Village. But otherwise, as it makes his way into Brooklands and Luffield, all looks quite swell at the moment, has to be said. Very clean lap so far through Luffield and Brooklands and Luffield here. Has to be said, that's a very interesting corner when it comes to the race. There's a couple of lines you can take through it, you know, and perhaps make some overtaking maneuvers through it into Copse, now the infamous Copse corner. Handled it quite nicely there. Into Maggots and Beckett's now. Got to be careful of the apexes of these corners. If you go a little bit too far in, you can invalidate your lap, but Wee has held it quite well. Down the Hanger Straight now. Purple Sector 2 from him. Up the hill into Stowe. Looks like this is going to be his attempt here. It would seem he's on low fuel. Into Vale, and eventually into Club, and then back down the Hamilton Straight to round out his lap here. It's looking a very solid attempt, has to be said, across the line. He goes to 1:26.839, puts himself within just about 8.5 tenths of the leader, which is Reimer at this moment in the McLaren. We've got Captain Nibs on his way through Chapel at the moment on low fuel. Behind him, that was the Williams of TJ Moraes? I don't know how to pronounce that. We'll just go by TJ. How about that? TJ making his way, about to be starting a timed lap here shortly. He's slightly backing off as he attops Stowe corner and then down the hill back towards Vale. Currently finds himself P3, just under a half a second behind Reimer. Coming through Club corner now down the Hamilton Straight. Let's see what TJ has to offer here as he makes his way in towards Abbey Farm and Village. How much grip the car has through that section of the track into Village now. Does well, hits that apex so nicely. That's going to set him up well for the loop corner here. Maybe a little tentative on exit, has to be said. Cuts Aintree nicely down the Wellington Straight now. What's he at for speed? About 200 miles an hour going in towards Brooklands corner. I think it goes a little bit deep in braking, but otherwise a little bit shaky getting back on throttle, but otherwise not bad. It looks like the Ferrari of Jaker is just on P4, 5.5 tenths. Separate himself from the provisional pole sitter of Reimer so far. Making his way now in towards Maggots and Beckett's here. Oh, he's gone wide through the exits of Beckett's then and going into Chapel. I think maybe he's lost a little bit of time. Almost 0.2 of a second better through Sector 2, not bad. Very high-speed section of the track, so that is going to definitely suit a car that is geared more towards, getting that straight-line speed. Of course, you want the downforce going through Maggots and Beckett's, but otherwise you do have the rest of the lap here is, again, very straight-line speed. I would say that first sector definitely the slowest, but so the line goes TJ, 126.017, takes about 4.5 tenths off his time, moves within 4/100ths of Reimer with about 6 to go here in the opening qualifying session of the season here in Silverstone. Next up, it looks like we're going to have, it's the Mercedes of Baniklash coming through Vale now. See what he's got to offer. 2/1000ths of a second separate him and the Aston Martin of Wee for the 9th spot. Through the first corner, nicely done. No signs of slipping whatsoever. Once again, a little bit of a shallow apex that time through Village. Not bad. Through the loop, that was nicely taken. Back on the throttle very comfortably as well. Looking like an okay lap so far. Down the Wellington straight in towards Brooklands. Only better so far by about 5/100ths. Not bad, but still a lot of lap left to improve upon as he makes his way into Sector 2. Quite wide through Luffield that time. Holds the exit nicely, gets good speed out of Woodcote, and down the, what I believe this is the National Pit Straight, I could be wrong. Heading into Copse Corner. Does take it quite shallow as well. You have to feel as if he's maybe let off a little bit to get as close down to the inside as he could. Maybe he's lost some time through there. I could be wrong, but it did look slightly slower. As Reimer goes provisional pole yet again, 125.928. That puts just about 9/100ths back to TJ, and Baniklash then is actually slower by just under a tenth as he makes his way into Stowe now. Top of the corner, holds exit nicely. Got to watch out for track limits there. That does creep up on you, especially if you're going to be going side by side with another driver in the race. It does start to get slightly narrow through there. Out of club. Actually does improve by about 1/4 of a second, up to P7. As it turns out, every driver so far to put down a timed attempt is within 1 second of our provisional pole sitter. That is a very good sight to see. That means we're going to have ourselves a great race coming up here. 4 minutes to go. Next driver out, we've got Pinto, who is not on a timed lap, but Reimer, is he giving the toe to his teammate? Now, in fact, it actually looks as if it's the other way around. Actually, no, I was right. It is Rise behind Reimer here. Looks like he's slightly far off for a toe. I don't know how well this lap is going, if it is a timed attempt here. No, it does look as if he's on a recharge lap. But his teammate's doing quite well. Rise at the moment kind of a little bit behind Jake for that 8th spot. About 1.5 between himself and P8. But once he cracks that barrier of 6.5 tenths, and oh, by the way, Baniklash has outqualified Jake Snowwolf by 1/1000th at the moment, who currently occupies the 7th spot. Rise is going to be coming onto a timed lap here any minute. He's got the yellow flag going through Maggots and Beckett's. It looks like Baniklash has something happened with him. No, he's just gone onto low fuel mode. Not a lot of time left. I'm going to assume everybody that's in the pit lane at the moment is going to be coming out here rather shortly. 3 minutes to go. That's going to be just enough time to get yourself back round, get to the line, put down your final attempt. But it has to be said, if you're a driver like Rise at the moment, you've got yourself a little bit of a cushion. If you do make a bad attempt here, assuming you've got enough fuel left, you can then back off, recharge, and get going again when you get back around. At the moment, he's 3/100ths faster through the first sector than his previous best. 2.5 minutes to go here. Gonna get another deep exit, deep apex rather, through Luffield, but he holds the exit speed nicely. In towards Copse Corner. Well, I tell you what, he tried his best to stay with the throttle as long as he could. He does have to downshift for just a moment, but he's held it quite well, I'd say. It's a pretty solid lap so far, maybe enough for P6, I would think. Well, he's still only faster by about 8/100ths. That's not going to move him any. But he still has this final sector to navigate here, up through Stowe. Looking like a pretty okay attempt so far. Is he going to be able to improve and get himself further within the top 10? Maybe a little bit of a shaky exit there through Club Corner. He's actually slower by 2/100. So with 1:35 to go, you'd have to believe he's not really going to have enough time to get to another attempt, as it looks as if, who do we have here? That's the Ferrari of JAG, who's out exiting, what is that, Cops Corner at the moment. We do have quite the queue of drivers coming through Sector 2 at the moment. It looks like it is going to be the Ferrari up next. So True Loki and Tim are the only two drivers to not put down a timed lap so far. Tim did retire in the time that I had glitched out of the session and then rejoined. I'm not rightly sure why that's happened, but it has. So it's going to be quite a tough day for that Alfa Romeo in particular, but Jake are going to be starting one here shortly. Looks like Reimer on an outlap as well. TJ, as well as his teammate of Lewis, also going to be on their way around shortly. Let's go along with Jake here as he starts off what will be his final timed attempt. We've got 35 seconds left in the session. Looks like the Red Bull of Jake Snow has actually just gone P5. Looks as if he has improved. Yep, that will be his final attempt. Half a second between himself and the pole sitter at the moment. Back along with the Ferrari as he makes his way into Brooklands. Nicely done that. Has to be said, very collective, very calm and collective start to this lap so far. Making his way into Cops Corner now. The clock has expired. Bannicklash has done all he can do. Rise has managed P9. Everyone else, let's wait and see. Here comes Jaker through Maggots and Beckett's. I think he's taken a little bit too much of the initial curb that time, but he's done well. He's actually faster by 1/4 of a second so far. That'll move him roughly P4, I'd say. Getting him around the Williams of Lewis. Whether he gets past the Alpine of Captain Nibs is a different story, but we'll have to wait and see here. Still a couple of corners to go, and you got to be careful exiting Club here. Lots of wheel spin to be had when you get back on the throttle. The Ferrari to the line, P5, 1:26.209, improves by just about 3.5 tenths. It's P5 for him. Next up is the Red Bull. It is Jake Snow Wolf. He doesn't really complete a timed one then. He had completed his lap earlier. True Loki God is not going to get a time on the board. He has invalidated this last attempt here. The Williams pair of Lewis is coming around the final corner now, goes 1:26.159. His teammate of TJ goes provisional pole 1:25.799. Separates himself from Reimer by just about 1/10.5, but Reimer coming through the final stages of the lap now. Is he able to improve? He's held provisional pole for the majority of the session, and no, he's off by 8/100ths of a second and does not retake pole position. So it is TJ taking pole here for the opening round. Reimer, a driver who looked very confident and very commanding over the grid throughout the majority of the qualifying session, does come up just under 1/10 short of taking pole position, but it's going to be that run down to turn 1 that's going to make all the difference here. Reimer, I have no doubt the pace he has, and I would assume he's going to give himself quite a fight and quite a good opportunity here to take that top spot by the end of the first lap. Looks like according to Loki, he's actually saying he would have gotten about P3 if he didn't invalidate. Quite a shame, but that tells me he's got some pace. We'll have to wait and see how that one plays out. So your starting grid then for the British Grand Prix, it is TJ on pole by less than 1/10 of a second over Reimer. Pinto 3rd, Captain Nibs 4th, 5th is Lewis, 6th is Jaker, 7th is Jake Snow Wolf in the Red Bull. 8th is Bannicklash, 9th Rice, 10th Algeri, 11th is Wee, 12th is True Loki. Himself and Tim did not get an opportunity to put down a timed lap attempt, but I will say the drivers who have put down a timed lap attempt, they have gotten within a second of the pole sitter, so it is a very closely contested grid this. It has to, well, at least from, initial looks, I think we're going to be in for a great Grand Prix here. We'll have to wait and see. Well, as it turns out, the rain has started to fall here in Silverstone, and that, I definitely didn't see it coming. Nobody had pinged me saying it would, but then again, I didn't ask him for that. But how is that going to play into the minds of TJ and Reimer here, our front row sitters for the start of this Grand Prix. At the moment, it's only just the intermediate tires. That'll be good news. That looks to me as if we're going to have some, I would say at least still some competitive racing. I think it's going to be now a matter of, who makes the least amount of mistakes. That is going to be the big question on my mind. And if you're one of the drivers like True Loki and Tim here, you're really going to be on the back foot. Remember, these two drivers did not get the opportunity to put in a timed lap. Tim had retired, and True Loki invalidated his previous, final attempt, which, he thought he was on pace for about P3. So these guys are going to be on the back foot, especially without the aid of DRS, and there goes the Aston Martin of Wee, who has spun it, and he's collided with the Haas of Algeri, and they are going to be reset to the grid, and all that means for them is that their tires are going to be ice cold off the start here. Definitely going to have to watch out for those two, especially if you're True Loki and Tim, because they're going to be right in your way. And I think it was just a matter of Wee kind of getting a little bit too generous on the throttle then, trying to light up the tires. And, well, unfortunately for them, that's going to spell the end of their formation lap. But TJ on pole here, gets pulled by less than 1/10 of a second over Reimer. Of course, that was in the dry condition. These wet conditions are going to mean absolutely everything, because as far as these drivers are concerned, it's a clean slate. You're not really going to know what's going to happen now. You're not going to know if anybody is, what the true pace is. You're not going to have the aid of DRS. You're really going to be driving on icicles the entire time. And we'll have to wait and see how much carnage, if there is, into that first section of corners through Abbey and Farm Curve and the loop. As they make their way out of Vale into Club and eventually back to the grid on the Sir Lewis Hamilton straight here. Remember, there's the opening round of the JAG Racing League Sunday. We got the Williams of TJ has gone straight through Reimer then. As they finally form up to the grid, it looks like the Red Bull of Jake Snowwolf and a couple others didn't get to the line in a correct fashion. They've been disqualified. They've been reset a couple of meters back, but the lights are going to be turning on here shortly for the opening round of the JAG Racing League here. Lights now coming on. TJ on the front row with Reimer to his right. It's lights out and away they go, and it looks as if TJ did get a much better start. Oh, off towards the back. Wee already getting out of shape there, as well as the Haas of Algeri. But TJ has cleared Reimer well into the first corner. Pinto has gotten away ahead as well. Lewis trying to get around Pinto, and in fact he will go down to the inside. He'll make contact with Reimer, and suddenly we've got a huge conundrum as they make their way into Village in the loop. Reimer has gone way towards the back. Pinto has made his way up to third, although then again he's gone wide, going out of the loop corner in towards Aintree. Really struggling for acceleration here and struggling to get back on throttle, struggling for grip. He falls down to the 6th spot almost immediately after what was looking like it was a good start for him. True Loki God has gotten into something. There's so much happening here, guys. Front wings have littered the circuit, and it looks as if TJ has, I think, really gotten away well here just by staying out of trouble. We got Pinto off towards the back. It looks like he's gone for a spin at Luffield. Captain Nibs within 0.2 of a second. That doesn't look like 0.2 of a second to me. That definitely doesn't look like 0.2 of a second. It looks like more like 2 seconds. But for the time being, the Red Bull of Jake Snowwolf under pressure from Bannock last year as they make their way out of Chapel and down the Hangar Straight. Who's going to have the straight line speed advantage here as they make their way into Club? The rain is definitely falling now. It almost looks as if the full wets aren't going to be far off here. As you can see off of the outside of the circuit, the rain is starting to form into puddles. That is going to mean we're going to get these full wets any minute, and it looks as if our driver's starting to come in. Yes, they are. Lewis has come in. It looks like, Reimer stayed out, but his teammate of Rise has come in, as Reimer's in a huge battle here. He's got Tim alongside, as well as the Aston Martin of Wee trying to fit his way in. As they complete the first lap, all hell is broken loose. That's the only way to describe it, really. Let's see what Lewis and Rise decide to do here. Lewis is coming right in behind the Williams. Front wing going on for the Williams. It looks as if just the intermediates and maybe another front wing for the McLaren. But at the moment, it does look as if TJ is off to a commanding start here, as the rest of the grid, those who have survived, will now have to do their best to just make it through and see and you know, gauge the conditions. That's going to be the tricky thing, because again, it does look as if we're not far off from the full wets here. That rain is absolutely coming down. Behind it does look as if the Alfa Romeo in a tough spot here. He's got the Aston Martin of Wee behind him ahead. He's trying to pressure Reimer for this 7th spot, but it doesn't look as if he's close enough to really make an impact on that at the moment. 0.4 of a second separate these two, and behind them the Haas of Algeri leads Pinto by 4.5. As it looks here, Tim trying his best to get back towards Reimer for that 7th spot. Reimer's not had himself a good start. He was caught up there going through the first section of corners, and unfortunately fell to the back down 5 spots, but has done well to kind of, I guess, regain his footing. According to the game lap, 13 to 19 is what you're looking for on the tires for these intermediates. But again, I'm not sure how long the intermediates are going to be the best tire. Again, it does look as if the wets aren't far off. TJ has gone fastest yet again, and the interval now shows us it's a 4-second gap between himself and Captain Nibs for the lead of the Grand Prix. Behind them, it looks like Baniklash doing his good job trying to get back to Jake Snowwolf here as they make their way down in towards Village. Ahead of them, it looks like the Ferrari of Jake are inside as well, but still a 1.5 seconds to be made up. Let's see who's more comfortable with the car here. It's going to be the matter of acceleration. Oh, Baniklash has almost lost the car. He's done well to hold on, but I'm afraid his opportunity of overtaking the Red Bull is going to have to wait. Just for now is behind him. He's got the other Red Bull of Loki, who has actually had himself a good start to the race, up 6 spots since the beginning, and is looking for more as he's got the Mercedes in view. Behind them, it looks as if the Haas of Algeri trying to make a move past the Aston Martin of Wee as they make their way out of Woodcote. Oh, that's a big slide then from Algeri, but somehow holds on. Well, he's done quite well to hold on to the car, but he has lost quite a bit of ground, another 0.3 of a second back to the Aston Martin, and oh, you can see that car struggling. Very understeer ridden it looks at the moment. So that leaves us with the closest battle being True Loki God trying to get to the Baniklash here for P5. Baniklash being in a Red Bull sandwich at the moment. But again, these wet conditions taking a lot of overtaking out of the game here. If we were in the dry, this would be a much closer race, has to be said. Again, it is just going to be a matter of who makes the least amount of mistakes. 0.6 of a second, and starting to close for Baniklash up to Jake Snowwolf. It looks as if Jake is kind of losing ground here to the Ferrari ahead. In fact, it's up to a almost 2.5 second gap between himself and the Ferrari of Jake are ahead. 0.7 here. Now this is where Baniklash almost lost the car last time round. You can see him sliding, taking that left-handed turn through the loop, and this time you can see much more careful getting back on throttle, and that has actually quite helped him a lot. He's at least stayed within striking distance of Jake Snowwolf here, although it looks like Snowwolf has actually gained another 1/10.5, maybe just on pure straight-line speed, because well, it's either that or just how well he was able to accelerate out of the corner. Reimer now trying to pressure the Red Bull of Loki God as they make their way out of Woodcote and down towards Copse. 0.5 of a second here. The yellow flag and its rise. He's retired on the way, what looks to be almost going towards the way into the pit lane. The virtual safety car is out here. I'm actually quite interested as to where he's come off. Has he just spun the tires coming out of Stowe and found his way down towards the inside wall? That's what I would assume, along with TJ here, and I'm going to assume, yeah, he's just lit up the rears coming out of Stowe corner and then maybe found the inside barriers. That would be my guess. But we're about to start our 5th lap of the Grand Prix here. TJ does have still a commanding lead over the rest of the grid. At the moment, the closest battle is that of Reimer and True Loki here. Oh, but what's this? We do have a couple of cars coming in here. Or at least the one. It is True Loki on his way in. Slightly surprised why he's decided to come in here. I don't recall him hitting anything. Let's see, into the pits he goes. Yeah, the front wing is going on. Algeri's got 3 seconds for multiple warnings, and Although there didn't look to be any damage on the front wing. Well, he's deemed it not very good, and the front wing goes on for True Loki. And that's going to relegate him back down to P11. It doesn't look as if Lewis is going to be back around in time to overtake him, but still, not very ideal for True Loki, who was on pace for a great recovery drive after his, after his rather abysmal qualifying session that he had. Looks like Lewis has picked up a drive-through for speeding under the virtual safety car. So at the moment, it is still TJ leading the grid here. Bannicklash now within a second of Jake Snowwolf. You can see hardly using his battery. Not one of these drivers. I tell you what, Jake Snowwolf being at 60% seems to me like he's been using it quite a lot. At least a lot more than a lot of the drivers I've seen so far. Bannicklash trying to hold on to the second window here. Doesn't quite look as if... It's difficult, isn't it? Because through the slow speed sections, we just went through Maggots and Beckett's, he chopped that gap down to about 0.6 of a second, and now closing. But again, on the straight line, it does look as if the Red Bull is just slightly faster. Let's see if it stays that way. Heavy over the apex curve of Stowe. Somehow he's able to hold on to the car nicely. Those curves are quite slippery, especially in these conditions. 0.4 of a second and closing now. I'd say what, Jake Snowwolf seems like he's suddenly on the back foot here. I'll have to wait and see what happens starting the next lap here. It does look as if Bannicklash still within 0.5 of a second. Again, not really close enough to make anything happen, but just, you know, having the car ahead know that you're coming to overtake him, you know. I tell you what, that was a slight mistake there from Jake. It looks like he's just gotten on the throttle a little bit too soon. The car almost went around. He did well to hold on to it as Lewis 5 seconds for speeding into the pit lane. Now as they go down the Wellington Straight here, it looks as if Bannicklash is starting to close in. But again, not really enough to threaten Jake Snowwolf here. But simply being in the rear view mirror of the Red Bull is going to be something to play on Jake's mind. Slight difficulty getting on the throttle that time. He's lost about 0.3 of a second that time, has Bannicklash, and that will nearly put him outside of that second gap. Through Stowe they go. The moment it looks like TJ's actually lost about 0.5 second back to Captain Nibs. I'm not sure if he's lost that under the virtual safety car or he's just, you know, taking it more cautiously. I'm going to assume it's the first one with the virtual safety car because typically, you know, if you don't play it correctly, you can lose time, especially, you know, despite it's something that's supposed to neutralize the field. It doesn't quite always do that, and some drivers are able to take advantage of it, as we do have Algeri and Wee go side by side up the hill into Stowe. Does look as if Wee is going to get that spot. He's not had to, I don't want to say he's not had to try too hard, but he's done quite well to get around him as Algeri tries to look for the right side into Vale. As there it is, it looks like, oh, Jake Snowwolf has gone off. This is outside of Club Corner down the Hamilton Straight. It looks as if as he just lost the car, the back end has just simply gotten away from him. He's ended up in the Tech Pro barriers on the outside of the circuit and is now, I would think, yeah, he's missing the right front end plate on the front wing. And that's put himself down to P9. And again, just simply pressuring the driver for Bannicklash did well to, you know, make himself relevant in that fight. I think Jake Snowwolf wasn't necessarily ready to defend, and he's, you know, overcompensated for the gap that was there. So it looks like Wee has spun around. No, and he was in a good spot there. He was battling with Algeri, and he's lost some spots. That is coming out of Aintree, about to go down the Wellington Straight, and I'm afraid, again, he's just kind of gotten too much on the throttle, and the car's gone around. That leaves Reimer within a second of Bannicklash here as they make their way through Maggots and Beckett's. The rain doesn't seem as if it's getting any lighter here, although it has to be said, it doesn't look as if the full wets are going to be on display. The intermediates still look the better tire. The rain hasn't started to collect on the surface, on the track surface any more than it is now, although it is quite a miserable day here, has to be said. So Reimer trying to... Whoa, I tell you what, he's had a bit of a slide then, but Reimer doing his best, I would think, just to try and get himself a good rebound here. He had the bad start. Someone got into the back of him, going through the first sector here on the opening lap. So maybe just having a little bit of a good bounce back is going to be all he needs, as it looks as if... well, I tell you what, I was going to think both Red Bulls were coming in. That's not the case. Jake Snowwolf is in, though, and he's going to be replacing that front wing after his accident last time round, which was unfortunate for him because he lost it after the way into the pit entry. So not ideal. I would assume Reimer could have a look at Bannicklash here. Bannicklash has shown flashes of brilliance, but at the same time, it does look as if he has been struggling with that Mercedes. There have been times where he's been very close to just straight up losing the car. But at the moment, he has put another 0.5 of a second back to Reimer in the time we've gone along with this battle. So I tell you what, maybe is Reimer not confident either in the paces of the McLaren. It could very well be. This is currently the closest battle on track. Well, actually, that's not even true. Algeria is about 1.5 seconds back to Pinto here and starting to close. Algeria, remember, having the 3-second penalty for multiple warnings. Pinto ahead has had himself a relatively quiet day, as it looks like Wee has gone around that this time coming out of Cop's corner. Slightly odd place to lose the car, but lost it he has. Now it's less than a second between Algeria and Pinto here, and in that time it looks like Reimer has actually fallen off an additional second back to Bannicklash. Let's see if the Haas is able to make a move on the Alfa Romeo here. Pinto has had himself a relatively quiet day since the off. He's still down 4 positions, but either way, he's not been the... not very much been in the way of controversy so far. Lewis closing in on Jake Snowwolf here, actually rather convincingly. The straight line speed looks quite good from the Williams at the moment. He still has what I think is a 5-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane, and then 3 more. Yeah, he's up to 8, so not ideal. But it has to be said, that car does look quite quick at the moment. He's now within a second of the Red Bull of Jake Snowwolf. Trying to hold on to that second at least. And in that time, it looks like Algeria is actually fallen off of Pinto here. That was outside of 2 seconds there for a little while. I'm assuming something's gone wrong with the Haas. And speaking of going wrong, don't look now, but TJ is now fallen back to within almost 1.5 seconds of Captain Nibs here. Remember, that gap was at 4 seconds when the virtual safety car came out, and, you know, he had lost a little bit of time when it came back in. But either way, something doesn't look to be quite right with that Williams. He's lost, 2 seconds. Captain Nibs doing his best he can. Again, it's going to be just about maintaining pace, maintaining consistency here. TJ is definitely pushing. You think he's used 25% of his energy store, so he is definitely either struggling or trying to push, I think, a little bit too hard. Could that be the case? Meanwhile, Loki is back within a second of Algeria here. Algeria, mind you, was within a second of Pinto just a couple of laps ago, and now Loki is going to be in position here to overtake the Haas for the 8th spot. Again, the Haas has the 3-second penalty, but still a lot of race left to go. Not even halfway through this Grand Prix yet. Makes their way into Village. Tell you what, Loki has gone quite deep on the brakes then. Through the loop and through Aintree. Loki looks down to the inside. He's not going to get it there, but maybe on the acceleration is he going to get it. The Haas does have a little snap of oversteer, and down to the inside is Loki. Does look to me like he's going to have the better of the braking zone into Brooklands. And yes, he does. Loki's going to get that spot. Very nicely done for the Red Bull. And has to be said, Algeria does seem to be struggling. Remember, he was within a second of Pinto not long ago. And has now lost the spot. Oh, that's a big slide. Does he hold on? Yes, he does. Only just. That was a huge slide then from the Haas. And somehow he was able to hold on. I'm not entirely sure how, because that was dangerously close to being an off. Now, mind you, that battle for the lead within a second and a half. As Captain Nibs in the Alpine is definitely getting closer to the Williams of TJ. They've started the 11th lap of the Grand Prix here, just a couple of laps away from halfway. And it does have to be said, the rain does seem to be getting lighter, doesn't it? It was definitely... It looked raining a lot harder at the start of the race. It does seem as if the rain is starting to calm down here. Well, TJ slides all the way down to the inside of the Wellington Straight there, trying to break the toe to the Alpine behind, and for the most part, it's actually worked. Captain Nibs hasn't really improved that much, and any improvement he had has then been lost going through Brooklands. Back up to a 2.5 seconds now, is actually expanding once again. And Bannicklash within a second of Jaker here. Doesn't seem to be afraid to use the battery at this point in time. Nor is Jaker ahead. He's used all but 20%. As Bannicklash is about 60. We'll check back with them in a minute. It looks like Loki is on his way to Pinto here. And Loki is really gunning it. He's used all but 5% and is getting even more as they make their way into Kopp's corner. Is Pinto struggling, or is... Well, I'm assuming Pinto is definitely struggling here. He's behind 14 seconds to his teammate of Tim. Yeah, it does look as if that Alfa Romeo is having to tiptoe his way around. And that Red Bull, I would assume, is going to be overtaking him here quite shortly. Uses all of the track. In fact, he's actually faster that time. What did that say? Half a second? Well, Reimer's on his way in. This is an interesting stop here for Reimer. The rain is still falling. Surely it's too soon for the dries. Have to wait and see as he lost a bit of front wing. Into the pit box goes Reimer. It is another set of intermediates going on. And the McLaren will pull away. He will be losing 3 additional spots. One of the Alfa Romeo of Pinto to the Red Bull of True Loki, and then to Algeria as well. Once again, then, the battle for the final step on the podium. Bannicklash within a 1/10 of Jaker in the Ferrari ahead. It does look as if Jaker is starting to struggle as Lewis picks up 3 seconds once again for multiple warnings, puts him up to 11 seconds. Again, it looks like the rain is starting to lighten up here, but still very wet track conditions. Intermediates will surely still be the tire to be on even after the rain ends. Looks like Loki is within... Well, he was within half a second of Pinto. Perhaps as he made a mistake under braking, has now lost another 0.3 seconds and counting. Through Maggots and Beckett's they go, and Bannicklash is really gaining on Jaker here. Jaker was being very... I tell you what, very cautious through Maggots and Beckett's, and yeah, he has lost even more time. And the Mercedes is definitely getting very close here. I would expect that overtake to be made quite soon. 0.5 seconds and counting on their way into Vale. Let's see who gets away better at a club. It does look as if it's even Stevens then. Bannicklash has improved his lap by almost 0.3 seconds. Jaker doing well. Well, his indicator says that he could be pitting soon. Now down to 0.5. Does Bannicklash have anything here? On acceleration, about halfway through this Grand Prix. Out of entry they go down the Wellington Straight. Bannicklash in pursuit, not necessarily using his battery. Yeah, I tell you what, if he used his energy store, I believe he probably could have gotten even closer to the Ferrari. Perhaps an opportunity to overtake into Brooklands, but that's not been the case. I would say the prime overtaking spot is definitely got to be going down the hangar straight into Stowe. But you take your opportunities where you can get them, and 0.4 seconds are now closing as they make their way through Kopp's. It does look as if Bannicklash is very much under control of his car once again. Remember, he was struggling, or at least it looked that way, in the early stages, and now it does look as if Jake is really struggling. Meanwhile, TJ has once again gotten that gap back up to about 2 seconds. It was about 2 seconds not long ago. It's back down to about 1.7. So it's a very even battle between the two at the top. But here, I would have to believe... Oh, Bannicklash is going in! As a couple of cars ahead pit, that being The two leaders as well, TJ, Captain Nibs, and Banniclash all pit. Jaker stays out. Slower that time by 1/10.5. But into the pits they go. Intermediates going on once more, so I guess they're anticipating the rain to stay. Interesting idea for Jaker to take the overcut here, as True Loki's 5 seconds for speeding into the pit lane. Very not ideal for him. But interesting for him to try the overcut here. He was very much on the back foot, especially in the battle with the Mercedes of Banniclash, but he has stayed out, which does seriously surprise me. Reimer's gone fastest lap so far, 1:38.109, as I believe. Has he gotten around Tim? No, Tim's just pit. That would make sense. That moves Pinto within 0.7 of a second of Captain Nibs, although Pinto, on the older tires, 13-lap-old intermediates, that leaves all but 3 yet to stop, that being the Ferrari of Jaker, the Alfa Romeo of Pinto, and we at the back in the Aston Martin. Something happened with Algeri. No, he's still on his way out. That was slightly concerning there to see Lewis and we go by that quickly, but just on his way out. So Jaker has an 18.5-second gap back to TJ. So I think TJ will lose quite a bit of spots here. I'm not sure. Jaker will lose a bit of spots here. I'm not sure how many. I would think. If we look at the gap back to leader, I would guess he's going to come out about P6, maybe P7. I think Reimer would definitely get past him. We'll have to wait and see. The Ferrari is in, as the rest of the grid comes around Stowe corner now. That being TJ, that being Captain Nibs, as well as the Alfa Romeo of Pinto, who suddenly put himself in this battle. Let's see how many spots Jaker loses. Intermediates going on. Coming out of club corner now, that's the man to soon have the lead of the Grand Prix of TJ. And he is once again taking the top spot. Captain Nibs will be promoted to second. Jaker not even out of the pit lane yet. He's going to lose to Pinto. He's going to lose to Banniclash. He's going to lose to Reimer as well. It does look as if Tim is still coming out of club corner now. So, as I predicted, Jaker's going to come out P6 behind Reimer here. Although I tell you what, it's kind of worked out for him in the end. He's still even on positions gained and lost. So I guess as far as that's concerned, he's not done all that bad. As Banniclash is going to try to outbreak the Alfa Romeo here into Brooklands, side by side, then going through Luffield. Round the outside is Banniclash, and this is what we were talking about, at least in the dry. You do get 2 lines of racing through that corner, and Banniclash has done it well. He's gone round the outside of the Alfa Romeo, and well, I tell you what, that was brilliantly done then from the Mercedes, but I don't think it's over yet. Pinto has not stopped yet. He's on 14-lap-old intermediates, but at the moment, he's still respectively enough holding on to Banniclash here. And I think then this is where it is. Banniclash is so confident through these low-speed corners. And Pinto is slower through sector 2 by over 0.8 of a second. Not ideal. But at the moment, TJ is still maintained a 1.5-second lead to Captain Nibs for the top spot. Captain Nibs is not necessarily... I don't want to say he's pushed all that much. I'm not quite sure where TJ has lost all that time. Let's see who sets the lap here. Well, TJ's gone 1:37.115. Captain Nibs, I don't think it was that far off, to be honest. It looks like the 2 Red Bulls are going to invert position on their way into Stowe. True Loki got his 14.5 seconds to get back to Tim for the 7th spot. Again, looking at the penalties, Loki's got 8 seconds. Tim's got 3. Algeri trying to get past the Williams of Lewis here. Lewis has not had himself a good day as far as penalty-wise. Algeri, despite having 3 seconds, is trying to stay competitive here. Down to the inside. They're going to be side-by-side down the Hamilton Straight here on the way into Abbey. And it does look as if the Haas is going to be able to get around the Williams here, convincingly enough. And, well, I didn't really expect Lewis to put up that much of a fight, considering his massive penalties he's encountered here. Reimer is now... I'm sorry, just noticing this now, 0.3 of a second away from Pinto as they make their way down to Kopp's corner. Let's see where Reimer decides to make the move happen. Out of Kopp's he goes. He's going to hold on to the car, make sure to not exceed track limits, through Maggots and Beckett's now, and this is where Pinto's losing the time. Remember, he was 8.5... Oh, what's happened here? Wee has gone off. Thankfully, he's not hit anything. Reimer's going to have, I think, quite the easy time here, although he'll have to get past Pinto rather quickly here, because this is now 4 seconds back to Banniclash for the third spot, and around the outside does go Reimer through Stowe. Was held on quite nicely there. I tell you what, Pinto's doing well. He's still alongside the McLaren here, into Vale. You know, this camera angle's not really helping us much, is it? I tell you what, Reimer really had to fight for that position despite the tires that Pinto was on, as here comes Jaker, who's going to look down to the inside of Pinto here for the pit spot. Although is not going to be too aggressive about it. That's probably for the best. Despite Pinto doing well here defensively, that car is going to be unpredictable with those old tires. It's going to quite slide up the track that time, as Jaker trying to hang it around the outside through the loop. Nice switchback, but Pinto has actually covered the move quite well. Tell you what, this is really... Tell you what, it looks like Wee has gone well off this time. That's outside of Stowe. Again, thankfully he hasn't hit anything, but that is a couple of spins there and not a lot of time. It does look as if Pinto has gotten around Jaker here. Sorry, vice versa. Jaker's gotten around Pinto. I tell you what, Pinto's actually done kind of well. He's gotten his teammate of Tim kind of in position for this battle here. Not necessarily, although I would assume Tim is going to be overtaking his teammate here quite shortly. That has, yeah, I would honestly say that has helped Tim just a little bit. He's going to be within 2 seconds of Jaker here for that 5th spot. That's 0.5 of a second closing. I would hope and assume that Pinto doesn't hold up his teammate. But, well, it does look as if that overtake is not going to happen this time, and closing in on the final 10 laps of the Grand Prix here, it has to be said, the rain doesn't look as if it's going anywhere. I was very much hoping that we were going to get a dry spell to this Grand Prix, and it has to be said, it's not looking too promising here. TJ has held the lead of the Grand Prix here. He won't get himself a Grand Slam. Remember, the Ferrari of Jaker led a lap, and at the moment I don't think he's got the fastest lap either. No, he does. Okay, so he's just that, really, 1 lap away from the Grand Slam, and it does look as if finally the Alfa Romeos have inverted position. It looks like, well, Jake Snowwolf is on his way in. Algeri stayed out. I'm not rightly sure what the deal is with that. Is Jake Snowwolf replacing a front wing? No, he's just simply putting on another set of intermediates. Odd. And the gap now exceeds 2 seconds once more. I'm just wondering where... Again, they do seem very even for pace. See what Captain Nibs does here. Well, he's held the exit through Chapel quite well. But he has lost about another 1/10 of a second back to TJ. We're going to have 8 laps to go this time by. At the moment, it does look as if this is going to be TJ's race to lose here. Hopefully, for his sake, there's no some sort of game-changing safety car here to be had. At the moment, it does look as if Lewis is trying to find a move past Wee for the 11th spot, although Lewis does have the 6-second penalty. Let's see what he does. Tries to find the outside. Wee's actually gone quite deep in the braking zone, and Lewis is going to do well to get back down to the inside. It's quite nicely done there from Lewis. Now once again, teetering on the inside of a 1.5 seconds. And see what, TJ is really doing his best to break the toe. He doesn't quite seem confident in the car's straight line speed, perhaps. Because that has moved Captain Nibs to almost within a 1.5 seconds for one of the first times this race. And again, the acceleration for the Williams just seems to be too much. He gains another 0.3 on acceleration almost every time. It's 1.6 here between Reimer and Jaker for the 4th spot. Reimer's had himself a good bounce back after the calamities in the early goings. As the top 2 make their way down the hangar straight now. P3 of Banniclash, 7 and a bit behind. Oh, and suddenly it looks as if that battle almost within a second here. Somewhere TJ has lost time. And Captain Nibs once more, now within a second and a half. 1.2 as a matter of fact. As we do have, what's that? Is that the Haas? Something's happened with Algeria as he makes his way. Perhaps as he just kind of had a bit of a moment coming out of Woodcote. It could be. But this is, I'm very interested to see where TJ is losing and then gaining back this time. It does look as if perhaps under braking TJ is losing. And then once again, back on acceleration, he's getting the time right back. Captain's going to have to do something, I would think, slightly incredible here to make up any more time. There goes TJ again, down to the inside of the Wellington straight here, trying to break the toe as much as he can. And this is what I'm concerned with. TJ, in through the braking zone, he did slightly lock up the right front tire that time. It's gone deep through Luffield. Let's see. Oh, that time acceleration didn't look all that well. Almost within a second. We're going to have 6 laps to go next time by, and I tell you what, we might have ourselves a fair battle for the lead here. Now, within a second between these two, it does look as if TJ is struggling with that car. Captain may have himself an opportunity here. Now within 0.8 of a second. But again, where is this time being gained and lost? It looks as if on exit of that corner, it did look as if Captain did get better exit. Used his battery just to flash then. TJ, has to be said, it looks as if he is, well, not only struggling, but he's trying to push that car as much as he can. Perhaps is he trying too hard? That's a very realistic thing to do. Meanwhile, 0.5 of a second separates the battle for P4 between the McLaren of Reimer and the Ferrari of Jaker. Although it does have to be said, Jaker not necessarily pressuring the McLaren that much, although simply the presence will be enough to make a driver make a mistake, as we saw with Bandiclash in his overtaking earlier on. Into Vale they go. Jaker way late on the brakes, nearly getting into the back of the McLaren, but has done well to stay off the back of him, I guess. That's probably better than crashing into him, for sure. But again, almost within a second, these two here, as they make their way out of Aintree, down the Wellington Straight. TJ once again breaking the toe as much as he can, but it's getting to the point now where Captain Nibs is going to be within that, air that the Williams ahead of him is punching the hole in the air. Is Captain going to be in that spot to where he can tag along to that slipstream and maybe gain more time? Because that's what TJ's trying to do. He's trying to throw the dirty air to the way of Captain Nibs here and trying to throw him off, but it's not necessarily working. I think TJ is getting close enough to where he can get legitimately within the slipstream and maybe close his way in. We're going to have 5 laps to go this time by. That battle for P4 has gotten slightly closer, now within 0.4 of a second on their way to Stowe. Sorry, not Stowe, this is Cops Corner. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Anyways, and now down to 0.7 of a second the battle for the lead. And that's going down the hangar straight then. This battle here within 0.3. We'll tag along with the leaders once more in just a second. But here we are. Who's going to get the better exit out of Chapel? And it does look as if Jaker has gotten well away, and now very much in position to get down to the inside of Reimer here, up through Stowe. Does he go later on the brakes? No, he's not going to risk it now. But if he stays on this pace, he will certainly have that move around the McLaren. I tell you what, he has gotten a better exit out of Stowe that time. And again, late on the brakes, but not really any room to make anything happen. So I think it is going to be done on the straights, this move here. But now, it's a 0.5 second for the battle for the lead here. TJ is losing time and definitely looks to be struggling. And there he is again. That time, got a little bit too much on the throttle coming out of the loop. And now, I tell you what, somehow he's actually still done well to stay ahead of the Alpine here. But TJ has looked fairly dominant the whole time as the Haas of Algeria has gone off before the pit lane. That's on the inside of Stowe, perhaps as he just, gotten lit up the rear tires and gone around. That could be the case. Jaker is within 2.5 of Reimer here for the 4th spot as they make their way into Brooklands and Luffield. We'll have to wait and see. Remember, this is really the battle for P4. Unless Bandiclash makes a mistake, that's as much as you're going to get. It's a 10-second gap between P4 and P3, and the battle and the gap between P3 and the top 2, 7.5 seconds. We have a yellow flag going through. That was going through Maggots and Beckett's. I believe it was the Aston Martin of Wee getting out of the way for Bandiclash that time. Slightly concerning. Algieri's picked up another 3 seconds. That moves him up to 6. And at the moment, that puts him only half a second clear of Jake Snowwolf for the 9th spot. Wee's picked up 3 seconds. That's not going to matter much for him at the end of the day. 0.8 of a second separate TJ and Captain Nibs for the lead. Well, Jaker's gone properly wide that time through Stowe, and he's lost a bit of ground, about 0.3 of a second. So 4 laps to go here. TJ doing as best as he can, trying to hold on to this lead for as long as he can. Does he? I tell you what, he still doesn't look confident getting onto throttle, but as soon as he gets out of entry, it's back up to speed. And it really is just a straight line that TJ's holding on to this. Captain Nibs is doing well, but at the moment he will need to use a lot more of his energy store if he wants to get around this Williams here. He's at 80%, whereas the Williams only 56. That could help the Alpine here. We'll have to wait and see. Making their way to Cops Corner now. TJ once again trying to give a bit of a wiggle and break the toe. It's getting very close here. Through Maggots and Beckett's like, oh, Pinto's gone off. Or, sorry, not Pinto, but Wee's gone off. Yeah, he has spun it. I thought Pinto had gone off. He had been overtaken by True Loki legitimately there. Very nicely done. It's 0.5 of a second between these two. Once again for the 4th spot. And there goes Jaker. 3-second time penalty for multiple warnings. You had to feel that it was on the cards after going wide out of Stowe that previous lap. And unfortunately for him, I think that is pretty much going to spell the end of his case for P4. Although, he'll still try his best to get it on track. You never know, especially in these conditions. Perhaps will Reimer make a mistake and fall behind 3 seconds. But either way, unfortunate for Jaker, as now he's got a lot more work to do here, and, well, not a lot of time. 3 laps to go here. Captain Nibs still within 0.8 of a second. Not necessarily getting any closer. I'm wondering, well, he's saving up as much battery as he can. Still about 80%. Yellow flag that time. Once again, it's Wee getting out of the way. Exiting the loop through Aintree they go. You can see it does look as if Nibs is slightly more, hesitant to get on the throttle. But I tell you what, don't look now. That rain has stopped. The rain has, I think, momentarily stopped falling here in Silverstone. That track's going to dry up. I don't expect it to be dry by the end of the session. I think the track is still going to be wet in these final couple of laps here. But I tell you what, that may be something to look out to here. The track is going to ramp up quite quickly. Gap up to a second now. Or Nibs. Oh, I thought he was going to go wide out of Cops Corner that time. He didn't. But now it looks as if Captain Nibs is slightly starting to lose some time here. It's 0.8 of a second. Remember, it was about 7.5 earlier. And now, once again, well, here he goes on the battery as much as he can. He's about 0.6 of a second slower that lap. And TJ has once again gotten that gap for the lead outside of a second. So Captain Nibs here, I think, very much on the back foot. The tables have turned once more, and now TJ looks as if he's in control. Coming to 2 laps to go this time by. Does TJ hold on here and put together a very dominant performance, just about a lap or 2 shy of a Grand Slam? But he's done so well. He's had the entire grid in the palm of his hand all day. He's stayed out of trouble in the opening lap. He's stayed out of trouble with the rest of the races as far as that's concerned as well. And now that gap almost back up to a 1.5 seconds once more, with about coming up on a lap and a half to go. Oh, but that was a wiggle that time. Okay, that may have been a mistake, although, again, he's not necessarily lost any time. The track not really close to drying out here, but we're still not in range for it to be declared dry. That will be the case when DRS gets turned on. As you can see, the spray still, the water still being evacuated off the tires of the cars here. So the intermediates will still be the best tire for this final lap, and that has to be said. I kind of wish we got a little bit more time on the dry tires, but I guess you can't always get what you want. Lewis, another 3-second penalty, puts him up to 9 seconds. Meanwhile, Jake Snowwolf within 0.6 of Algieri here. Algieri's got 6 seconds of penalties. Remember, Algieri was about, when he picked up that extra 3-second penalty, he was actually about 0.2 clear of, being able to hold on to the spot despite having the 6-second penalty. He has lost 5.5 seconds in some form or another. and now is really under pressure from the Red Bull here. Oh, but Pinto's gone round, and Pinto has, well, he's retired on the track, unfortunately for him, but he has lost the car through the loop, has spun the car around, and has made contact with the tire barriers on the inside. He's lost a bit of the front wing. The car is properly beached here, and unfortunately for him, that is going to spell the end of the day for the Grand Prix of the Alfa Romeo, as we are now on the final lap of the Grand Prix. TJ doing his best. He just has this final lap to stay ahead of Captain Nibs in what has been a very commanding day all day for the Williams. There was times where he did look as if he was genuinely struggling. Let's get that clear. I think Captain Nibs has done well to at least, you know, keep TJ honest and keep him on his toes. But there's been no doubt that TJ was going to be the favorite here ever since the end of the virtual safety car. And it has to be said, we're going to go back along with Jake Snowwolf here. Within DRS range, of course we don't have DRS, but within, actually now, almost 0.4 of a second on Algieri. He'll be getting the spot either way, but he would like to most likely take that spot on track. And as they go through Kopp's Corner and into Maggots and Beckett's for the final time, it does look as if TJ is going to walk away with this one. Hopefully commentary curse doesn't strike me here, but has to be said. It's been a very great day. And props to Captain Nibs and Banniclash as well. All three of the podium finishers have absolutely deserved it today. And now as they make their way into Stowe for the final time, unless Captain Nibs has something ridiculous up his sleeve here, it is going to be TJ Morals making his way into Vale, eventually into Club, and there goes DRS enabled. Well, that's mighty helpful, isn't it? DRS finally enabled here. TJ Morals coming out of Club Corner onto the Hamilton Straight, and he will win the British Grand Prix here at Silverstone. Captain Nibs finishes in second, a very respectable day for him, and Banniclash, despite the troubles he faced with the car earlier on, will come home to finish third. It was a great day for him, and one I'm sure is going to be, you know, in his opinion, quite well earned. He's done very well to hold on to the car. He did have lots of troubles with it in the early stages, but he's done well. Reimer finishes fourth, Jaker fifth. Good battle between those two for the very longest of times. Tim will take P6, and it does look as if, well, Loki is going to take P7 despite his penalties here. So Loki does take 7th. Algieri's going to lose the spot to Jake Snowwolf, most likely, although it is only about a 1 second gap. Oh, Lewis is in this as well. Of course, he's got the penalty to be had, but either way. What? Why is Captain Nibs retired? That has only come across my screen now. At what point did he do that? Odd. Huh. Not really sure what that's about, but either way. Mind you, Nibs did truthfully finish second. I don't know why the game said he didn't finish. That's going to promote Reimer to third for some reason. I don't really know why that is, but what we do know is the Williams has genuinely won this race here. I'm not really sure what's happened otherwise. So after it's all said and done here in Silverstone, it is TJ taking the win. The Alpine of Captain Nibs did finish second. I don't know why the game has said he's DNF, but that's the case. Banniclash third, Reimer fourth, Jaker fifth, Tim sixth, seventh is True Loki God, earning driver of the day as well. Eighth is Jake Snowwolf, his Red Bull teammate. Ninth is Algieri. 10th is Lewis. 11th should be Wiggy. or Wiggy, that's not his name. I don't know. Anyways, well, it was a very interesting British Grand Prix to be had, and next week we head just about 4.5 hours north of my house here in New Hampshire to the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve in beautiful Montreal, Quebec, Canada, for the second round of the JAG Racing League season here. Hotspot, it's been a pleasure joining you this time out, and we'll see you next week.